Hello and good evening, everybody. Here we go, and I now have the pleasure to have sorting my screens and looking a bit to the left to get all the stuff done, which normally our dear friend Thomas, who is in Croatia right now, in Zadar, he is with a startups conference, which seems to be very well received. And so it's the three of us today. I'm very pleased, after a little chase, to have our friend Michael Obermeier from SAS with us. And you wrote down under the name sheet and under that funny thing which says who you are, SAS Institute. Because at that time, my dear friend Marshall said, SAS, you mean SAS Institute. But this is a fantastic opportunity, Michael, to introduce yourself. Tell us a bit about the past and what you are doing at SAS or SAS Institute.
All right. First of all, thank you, Ralph, for having me, and it's great to be on the show. Honestly, I've been watching a couple of your episodes in the past just to get prepared. What you're doing, guys, is really great. Doing a lot of good stuff for the CRM community. So I'm humbled to be here today. Yes. So who am I? What I'm doing here, particularly. So I said I'm Michael Moore. I'm working for the SAS Institute now for roughly 7 months. Basically, what my business card says, I'm the head of customer advisory for customer experience solutions. So basically, we have a team in the German-speaking zone that helps customers who are on their path to improve their customer experiences understand where they want to go, what are the roadblocks, what are like their aspirations, and how can we help them as an organization to get there, right? Obviously, at the end of the day, we hope that they're going to buy some piece of technology that will enable their path towards delivering better customer experiences.
That is the normal procedure if I want to get my audience distracted, that I start the monitoring scenario either in Facebook or LinkedIn if everything is working. I can tell you it's working. So please continue your journey in describing what your role from the business card starting is and what you have experienced so far.
Right. Yeah. So first of all, congratulations on the distraction piece. That worked out really, really well for me.
Worked great on me too.
Yeah. Job well done.
What were we talking about?
Yeah, hot beer. No, that was in the pre-roll. So coming back to business. So again, my role is really to make sure that on the one side, I am, if you will, I always come as like a cheerleader for the topic internally in our own organization, because as you may or may not know, SAS has a very long and strong track record in analytics, statistical analysis, and obviously artificial intelligence. Those are the things that everybody associates with SAS. What very little known is that we also have a almost 15-year, maybe even longer track record in the MarTech space. So everything around database marketing automation. Now, as we progress and as customer journeys get much more hybrid, it's obviously going more and more into the direction of how to best orchestrate customer journeys and customer experiences. And again, I'm basically the cheerleader of all these topics within my region to make sure that everyone inside SAS is excited about the topic, carries the message to the customers, and obviously makes them successful. On the other side, I'm also representing the organization to customers, to partners on events. If you will, I'm an evangelist. That's kind of like everybody says an evangelist, but the essence of what I'm doing is obviously to preach the gospel of SAS and what we can do to make customer experiences a better thing, right?
I would like to start a rocket of enthusiasm, such as naming yourself as a cheerleader, if I understood you correctly, is absolutely cool and compelling to me. such as guys, chaka chaka chaka, here, let's go and run for it. That is a real interesting and tough role to onboard people, for instance, on one end, on the other end, to tell them what they have at their hands and what they can do for their customers, because it's something like, as you told us, how long you are in the market. And one of the dear guests in our show, Phil Winters, was for a long time with us. And he was preaching the similar things and was convincing teams and audience and customers to utilize the benefits you can deliver. But luckily, you have been even with some more in the topic of we do something for customers, or we do some customer relationships in your business track record. Could you tell us a bit about your past?
Sure. Where to start? No. So when people ask me how long I've been in the space, I always jokingly say like, well, probably half of my business life. So or half of my life in my business life. So I think it's, however you want to look at it, 17 to 20 years. I've been within the larger space of CRM, right? It started with a very small role as a project manager at a medtech company where we introduced a product that you, Ralph, are very familiar with at the time, which was Marketing Manager. Probably nobody in the audience will recognize the name, but that was at the time a very interesting niche product in the European market for life sciences companies. And that kind of like ignited the fire in me for the topic of CRM, because I found this was a very compelling idea of understanding how customers think, what they like, how they have different touch points within your organization, maybe in marketing or in sales or field service. At the time, MedTech was obviously had all these different touch points, and collecting this information, making sense of it, and then doing something with it to, excite customers, sell more, yada, yada, yada. That kind of, I like this idea. And so I followed this passion for some time on the customer side. And then I got the opportunity to actually work for the very company that made that software, which was Update Software AG. So European, would say hidden champion in that segment at the time. And I spent there, let me think, roughly 7 years in different capacities, from sales to pre-sales. I was running the education division for a while. So I had a ton of different ways of exposure to the topic and to customers and their projects and their requirements. And until we at the time got acquired by a private equity company that kind of like took everything to the next level in a way. But that in itself was a very interesting learning experience to be with Update and again see how the CRM market was developing over time, and how the requirements of the customers changed over time. That was an interesting thing.
So we nearly met there, but as I looked into the time rows and timelines, we missed roundabout some months or even 1 year when I have left the organization before the IPO. And for which medtech were you working at that time? Because Update was at that time famous for several very attractive customers, such as one was Philips Medical.
Right.
And I don't know if you have been with them.
No, it was Abbott Laboratories, part of the Abbott conglomerate. I don't know what they're called today. I think it's AbbVie. So they have been, split up into different companies. So I wasn't sure what the name is today, but Abbott was it at the time.
Yeah. It's very interesting because at that time, which the audience might not know, the medtech and the pharmaceutical market, and especially if you have consumer goods and you have to sell something over the counter, or you have the so-called fast-moving consumer goods, it needs a dedicated different version in addressing your data for the convenience of serving the customers best. That was the pre-CDP phases. So where we have had several interesting constructions, and we have had older non-SQL databases at our hand. So that version, which was sold at that time to the OTC and FMCG market, was the most state-of-the-art version. And there were reasons. So you have had the time frame, if I'm not mistaken, where you have had 2 CEOs at least. You have get the opportunity to know during that time, I guess. You must have met Gabi and one of the gentlemen afterwards, yeah?
Right. So I didn't meet Gabi. I just worked with Thomas Deutschmann, which I highly appreciate as a manager and as a CEO.
A cool person, a cool, let's say, visionary leader who was taking the company to a lot of challenges, but also with a positive outcome. To the moment when he was a bit taken by surprise and suddenly somebody offered to buy the company.
Right.
But this happens if you're on the stock exchange.
Yeah, it's a pleasant surprise. Hi, here's a whole bunch of money. Can I have your company?
Right. Yeah, I think there were people were pretty torn about this, obviously within the company, and I don't want to talk much about different ins and outs of that whole acquisition thing. But obviously, private equity is a very special breed, and obviously that doesn't always sit well with workers' council and whatnot, right?
Especially.
However, I mean, at the end of the day, I think being acquired by the PE company wasn't obviously the best thing that could happen to the company. Let's put it like this, right?
Yeah. It's simply that I wanted a bit to go to the background and to these challenges as well, because we see in the market right now, not with Das Institute, as they were like one of the, I would say, the pole stars you could guide your ship with. The brightest stars on the sky, still there, always present, and always with solution sets which made the path of progress. So that was for me always something very, very strong, very interesting to see, and to see that they have a certain attractiveness. So then Update was named after it has been bought and integrated Aurea, and then came your next business opportunity, getting even more closer to the customer.
Right. So I mean, at Aurea, I had the possibility and opportunity to broaden my horizon from a from a business standpoint, because obviously we didn't just do just do CRM. Yeah. We actually had a real CX platform in our portfolio that would allow us to automate processes, make real-time decisioning, and obviously also have capabilities around marketing automation. So we could put together a really compelling offer to customers in that area. And I was also able to spend some time in product management as a product manager, so that could also gave me a different lens on things, right? Not just being out there talking to customers, selling, building visions, but really understanding the deeper requirements of customers and why they want the things the way they want them. And obviously making hard choices about whether to consider those things or not. So I always empathize with product managers on that side of the equation. But yes, to your point, at some point I landed a very interesting gig at Medallia. So those of you who don't know Medallia, it's the cooler Qualtrics. And the idea basically...
I love that.
sorry. I all Medallia people who watch this, I love you. You know that. So the idea of Medallia is basically to understand how customers feel about their experiences they have with their brands and the companies and products they interact with, and to do this by collecting customer feedback across different touch points. And that was, to your point, Ralph, that was interesting, just to take that one step closer to the customer and really understanding from a customer lifecycle perspective, but also from distinct journeys, how to make it measurable and how to take those insights actually and turn them into actions that, not just from an esoterical standpoint make customers happier, but actually move the needle in terms of more revenue, better margins, or better profit. So yes, that was very, very interesting and exciting time I spent there. Absolutely.
And as we have named and titled our episode Data-Driven Real-Time Customer Journey Orchestration,
Yes.
It started with what we had missing at that time, business intelligence tools, which gave us some information and which gave us some insights were the early stages in the update years. So 22 years ago, roughly. And if one sees the development, how cool and how in-depth you earn knowledge, and in the Aurea part, in that stack, suddenly the marketing manager CRM solution became a lot more into marketing automation. Large airlines as customers drove a new perspective, which was from the outside looking quite something compelling, where you were a bit envying and saying, oh, now he has a lot more tools at his hand to drive what customers might expect. Now with Medallia, which bought recently Thunderhead, there is a very strong part in the game. Now, the next step became SaaS. Why?
Couple of reasons. So on the one side, SaaS is a very well-known brand, and obviously that was very enticing to work with a company of such size and presence in the market and being acknowledged several years, if you will, decades as the leader in analytics and recently also machine learning. And on the other side, I've been working with SaaS in the past. So when I was with Update, we actually had a couple of sales opportunities to work together on, where SaaS would provide basically the whole next best action, next best offer kind of piece, right? Understanding who are the audiences, what are the affinities, making offer attribution, all that jazz, and having the analytical CRM paired with, at the time, this top-notch operational CRM was awesome. So I had this still in mind, with like, how cool would it be, take that analytical powerhouse and then have on the other side this MarTech stack we have at SaaS and bring that to market on a grander scale. That was something that actually also lured me to SaaS, and obviously my scope of work, if you will, and my responsibilities are broader than they have been at Medallia. That was just a nice byproduct, if you will.
Okay. That is in one perspective, such as they really knew how to get the insights and form and play as a long track record, having in the background with the data they find at a database, and can, in a positive way, manipulate it in any thinkable way, which I found in these days when some of the people which are no longer with us, but like Phil, like others, and have been there, and we have had in the German Direct Marketing Association a lot of events when we had the opportunity to go to Heidelberg, for instance, in the premises from SAS and have there some events. And it was always striking to see that they had a broad smile on their face when you asked, what do you know about your customers? Well, we enable our customers to know a lot more about their customers than they have without us. So this is something which, let's dig in a bit to data-driven. I have a clue of an idea what this is. Now, how do we get, because this was one of the things we learned to love in the talks with the chaps from Thunderhead, which we had here in several shows, that this is the real-time aspect, the instant moment you can drive predictions forward and act to it, agile. I would like to know, learn to know a bit about your understanding of customer experience and where is the real-time component in it?
Right. I mean, there's obviously this general, if you will, understanding that customer experience is basically the sum of all the experiences that you have as an individual when interacting with any given company, right? But this includes, it's not limited to, but it includes obviously the people of the company, the processes, the products, its branding is also part of it, right? So what is it promising versus what is it actually delivering? And also the ecosystem, which is something that I think more and more companies today understand, that customer experiences don't start at the Google search and end at the online checkout, but there is a lot more at the beginning and at the end of that end-to-end journey, right?
Yeah.
So this is the general, and those are my understanding of customer experiences as such. And there is, and we've talked about this before, but there is this idea, which is actually already 20 years old, of what's called the experience economy, right?
Yeah.
Two pretty smart professors made the thesis that in the future, well, today obviously, organizations will be much more successful, right, if they basically put customer experiences and are staging customer experience in a way that is enticing for the customers to interact with them, right? It's not about the product, it's about the experiences that people have with your brand. And their idea was basically to say, like, those products will be merely props, right? Like in a play where you have, like, you know, your different props on the stage, but it's actually the actual experience that will make the difference. And when you think of it in terms of, let's take a simple example like Starbucks, right?
Yeah.
They serve, let's say, above average coffee, right? To be really fair, from a Viennese standpoint,
I wouldn't say that. I wouldn't be that kind, but
all right, you know, we're on the record, you know.
Yeah, we're not sponsored.
All right, but
not
for the
sponsored
sake of the argument, they serve above average coffee, right? But you could literally get the same coffee maybe in, you know, in a vending machine, or you could get that coffee, you know, you could buy your own coffee beans and grind them and make your own coffee. Well, okay. But if you look at these different ways of how you look along the value chain, if you buy the coffee to yourself, it probably costs you, you know, a couple of cents per cup, right? If you go to the vending machine, it may cost you €1 or €2 or $1 or $2. If you go to Starbucks, you're gonna pay like 5 to 7 euros for a coffee with some whipped cream on it and some, I don't know, some magic sprinkle and your name written sloppy on the you know, on the paper cup. Why you're doing it is because you have that loungy music, you have those nice little leather chairs, and you have, you know, nice atmosphere, right? And that kind of makes you want more of this, right? It's just the whole experience from coming in there, doing everything, that you're willing to pay more money. And the same is true for, you know, many of the restaurants, right? The food is not always the best in terms of like the best, but it's good enough. But the experience around it makes it like, unique in a way, and you're willing to pay more for it. I just experienced this lately on my summer vacation where we're sitting in a cafe next to the beach, right? It was the location, it was the view that kind of like made me pay €5 for a cappuccino, right? In all seriousness, that's a lot of money for a cappuccino, but everything else just made me do it. This is in a very simplified way where the market is going and how organizations will have to differentiate themselves in order to be successful commercially.
Yeah, that is a very good point. And you're talking about the experience of your surroundings, but it applies in mass marketed stuff too. Like you mentioned Starbucks. One of my preferred examples is McDonald's, which may not have the best food in the world, let's be fair, but they have done their research. They have run the numbers, and every part of what is served to you has been calculated to support the McDonald's experience. Right. The color and texture of the stuff that they call cheese, that they've done science on that to get the color exactly the same every time, that melts exactly the same, that just so that every time you go there, this is obviously McDonald's stuff. The Coca-Cola that comes out of their machine has been very finely balanced, the syrup and the carbonation, to taste exactly a certain way. They have a deal with the Coca-Cola company to do that. And they have, for better or worse, mastered the idea of customer experience in the place.
Yeah, it's true. When you break it down, it's about consistency, yes, and it's about managing expectations properly, right?
It's a world product. If you still would have the opportunity to have a burger in Moscow, in Shanghai, in Peking, or in Buenos Aires, you would always have, to a absolutely 95% degree, the same taste in the product. There is one difference. You have to go to France, because there you get burgers with mustard, which taste completely different. And my first experience on a global product served in France was that I had a Big Mac French version, which was looking good and full of the expectation, appetite. I bit into it and was, let's say, positively speaking, surprised. Yeah. And then came distracted, such as, what is this? Yeah. And it was something like Dijon mustard, which is a different taste than what you would have been served here in Germany, Develei or something. It's a completely different taste of the mustard, which changes the taste of the burger. But at the end of the day, you have the same processes for the French fries, for the other products, and you even could get some more fruity products at that time, such as the Frenchies love fresh products. So what we have in the, let's say, let's go green, let's go vegan, let's go healthier, this was a very interesting experience to see that this is working in that direction. And speaking about an experience, one of the things I liked very much in the examples from, as you have chosen the coffee at the beach in your vacation, such as creating an experience in having the best months of your life in going for vacation with a certain a provider of these services, travel agency or something like that, or the other typical experience we have, even that TV series, the Dream Ship, Traumschiff, AIDA. This was something you had in the United States when I was young, Love Boat. Yeah?
Yes.
Something like that, which was the experience. It was not that you go on a ship. It was that you had a captain's dinner, you had nice clothes, you were showing off what you had. Yeah, the golden Rolex, the nice shirt, the cool dresses, the beautiful designed and styled women, and all what is the surroundings. And I believe that there are still a very strong fan community which drive with the Cunard lines, with their ships in the Queen Elizabeth and their sister ships, and love to have that experience there. Now let's get a step back to the software. How, interestingly, do we support such expectation in the journey? And Marshall mentioned it, such as if somebody is doing his homework, his figures, and is taking information out of it, how is it operated? How does it work in real time? And how, from your perspective, can one orchestrate the journey?
Right. So we talked about data-driven marketing, data-driven whatever.
Yeah.
I think what every organization on this planet has understood by now is that they have to leverage customer data to create those experiences. Mm-hmm. Now, I think there will be not a single company on this planet who doesn't have not enough data, or to put it the other way around, has more than enough data to basically understand their customers. I think what many organizations still are kind of struggling with is, and we have done a study on this, is to actually apply analytics and artificial intelligence to actually make sense of the data they have. The study I was just referring to was looking at, we call it the CX champions share your secrets. And we looked at different cohorts. So we had the CX champions, were roughly 15-ish% of the whole the whole survey group. Then we had those CX followers, which were made roughly, was it, I don't know, 50-ish%. And then we had those laggards. And the followers and laggards combined, only 15 to 18% were actually applying analytics across the complete customer lifecycle. Now, let that sink, right, for a second or two. So there's ample opportunity for organizations to take the data they have across the lifecycle of a customer to understand what are their preferences, what are affinities, what are their behaviors to displaying along your life cycle, and how can you exploit is a strong word. How can you leverage this information to actually create relevant experiences for your customers? Now let's just assume for a second that customers or organizations have figured that one out, right? So you have your analytical models in place. You understand, this is Michael. Michael loves to travel to Spain with his family, with his 2 kids. And he does this at least 3 times a year. For whatever reason, he always goes to south of Spain. Now, with all that information, a company could at least start marketing information to me or start a conversation when I engage with them, right? They could start by a classical outbound campaign, send me an email. Another one maybe, if they would figure out the time of travel, they could have some lead time and start marketing at the very most likeliest time that I start researching and inspire me to go to a particular place, whatever. But to do that, again, you need to have those analytical models in place. Now, as we know, we 3 at least, customer journeys and the way how we interact with brands has become much more complex in the way how we navigate different touch points, how we go back and forth in our journeys. So journeys aren't linear, as we know, right? People start Googling something, they go on a website, they research stuff, and maybe, they go back, Google again, maybe they switch devices from desktop to mobile phone, then you go on social, yada, yada, yada. So the journey is very, let's say, very dynamic. And you, as a company, you need to ideally understand where are those touch points within the journey to have your listening posts, right? To listen to what the customer is saying / doing and understand their behavior and use those moments where they do interact with you as a brand to actually give them a nudge, inspire them.
Yeah.
And this is, just to close my argument, this is where the real-time component comes into play, right? Because up until that point, you have the analytical models, you understand what are the messages, what are the offers you can give. Now you have to make sure that in that very moment, in this very small opportunity, a window of opportunity where you have that customer right in front of you in any given channel, that you can give them the exact information he or she needs to make sure you're going to move on in your funnel, right? And this is where the real-time piece comes into play, right? Mm-hmm. And the real-time piece is twofold, right? One is to actually do it in real time, have that message and push it into the channel in front of the customer. The second one is to actually make decisions in real time, because what Michael did a month ago or 3 months ago might no longer be relevant from an offer perspective, right? Maybe I have done some research in the past and looked at different places in Spain. So the model has figured out some kind of offer for me, has it pre-calculated. Since a couple of days it's sitting there waiting to be summoned in the channel, right? Now I'm getting there, but just 5 minutes before I came to the channel, I did something on the website and I looked at, I don't know, something in Asia, because I've never been in Asia, so what the hell, let's go there. And then suddenly the web chat pops up and goes like, hey, Michael, hola, how about going back to south of Spain? And I was like, what the hell? So the dissonance is, bro. The dissonance you have to, as a company, you have to make sure consistent, and you have to make sure you understand the context in which your customers are moving in. And that's why you need that second piece. That's very important. You have that real-time decisioning to make sure you factor in what has just happened a couple of seconds ago, and is what I think I know about the customer still quote unquote true, or do I have to change my perspective in the same sense? Have to change my messaging towards a customer. That makes sense.
It makes sense, but I have to wonder, how can an organization know, or how could it ever be certain that something that the customer is looking at now that is different from the past isn't just an impulse or something that is temporary? I expect that you and your family will continue to go to the south of Spain for years and years to come, but you were interested in Asia just recently, for purposes of the story, even if it's not actually true. How do you prevent, or how does a business know the difference between a real change of focus and a momentary interest?
Right.
Can they?
The truth is, I don't know. I think as an organization, you have to look at these, and maybe they're just edge cases, right? Maybe it's just 1 out of 100,000, whatever. You just ignore it. However, what you could do is, if you could define business rules. So technically speaking, it says like, okay, there is Michael. Michael has displayed this kind of behavior from a travel kind of like routine perspective, right? He's a South of Spain kind of audience. However, this very time, he has engaged in a different geography. Maybe we want to just park all the South of Spain messages and do something completely different, come with something completely different from a messaging standpoint, right? Maybe it's not an offer, maybe it's not an action, maybe it's just like some inspirational stuff, and see what happens, and just, you know, look at it. Maybe there's a second Asia kind of action coming up in a couple of days on a different touch point. So it's really about, a decision could also be to do nothing, right? That's also a good decision. Before you just break that experience by messaging something that is not relevant in that particular engagement, you rather do nothing, right? That's also an option. So
that's an important point. Sometimes the right message to send is no message.
Right.
And it needs to be taught to a lot of companies because they don't know that one yet.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
And it is, if there is a lack in natural intelligence, or there is simply here emptiness, then that little bit of artificial intelligence is not saving your day, yeah, unfortunately. So the general understanding of customer needs, customer behavior is important, and to have it on a track and to react to spontaneous, let's say, influences, moments of truth or moments of experience is important. Such as if you have your two kids, your wife, and the three of them love to go to some places in Spain where they have beaches, and you would like to hike or to climb a mountain or to see some more churches or historical buildings, you might pick another place, or you might pick an area where you have a club vacation where the kids are entertained, your wife has beauty and wellness, and they offer you some extra sports or some trips out of that club, which allow you to hike some of the mountains they have still in Spain. And it's unbelievable, but you can ski in Spain if you know where to go. Yeah.
Right. Sierra Nevada is a good spot.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's not only good for fantastic Western films, because a lot of the Western films have never been made in the United States because it was too costly, especially when they've done Italo-Western or something like this, German
Spaghetti Western.
Spaghetti Western. Thank you, Stu. Yeah, exactly. And that was because the landscape is quite similar to the Monument Valley and other areas. Yeah. Going back to the intelligence which is created in the products to predict and presume certain activities. So they would make you some offerings. What I was wondering is, how is that market developing? Because you said you did recently that study. Are people from the business company side accessing and utilizing it more to the benefit to be smarter towards their customers?
Absolutely, absolutely. So what we see in general is a shift from going away from this very campaign-centric, often still kind of batch job kind of communication towards a more customer and, if you will, journey-centric interaction model, right? So that's a massive shift we see across the board, regardless if it's retail, if it's insurance, if it's banking. All these different industries are moving there. It's, you know, it's depending on the industry, it's a slower, faster process, but this is generally where the market is going. And if you look at it from an analyst standpoint. I was just looking at it this morning at a Forrester report, the recent one.
Yeah.
So the acquisition of Thunderhead basically just emphasizes where the market is going. So Qualtrics acquired UserMind a couple of months, maybe a year ago. Then Medallia acquired Thunderhead. There was this Kitewheel acquisition. So you see there's a consolidation happening in the market. You see that players understand this is where the market is going. So as a software company, to be in that space is great. Let's put it that way. And companies understand that this is where they have to move, because at the end of the day, as a consumer, and I'm trying to speak now for you and for me, what is important to me is that I want to feel seen, and I want to have relevant and timely communication, and I want it ideally in real time, and I want it on any given device, right? Obviously safe in terms of data privacy, but those are the things that I expect today from literally any brand. So I don't differentiate between using Uber or using Amazon or using, I don't know, my online banking app, right? For me, the bar is the same for each of these applications or each of these partners I'm transacting with. So the general expectation from consumers is going there, and companies who understand this or have understood this already on the way there and shifting the way I communicate with the customers in terms of like real time, relevant, which is being relevant is in itself a big challenge, but it has to do a lot with context. It has to do a lot with timeliness. And this is where all these pieces come into play. You have to understand your customers. You have to understand where they're coming from, what kind of context they're interacting with you right now. And then you have to also have a relevant message for them. So this is where we are. This is where the market's going.
And as we have shown the benefits to the organization and the benefits to the customers they are addressing, the question which came to my mind is exactly the one which I tried to mention. Is that in B2B and B2C different? And when yes, where?
The simple answer is no, it's not. Because why do I think it is not different? At the end of the day, we are all just, individuals.
Yeah.
I'm not a different Michael as in my role. I'm here at SAS, or I would be a potential buyer for products that would be relevant for my role. Then I am the private Michael going to south of Spain. So I have the same expectations if I interact with a salesperson in the B2B context. And also when you look at studies, it's very similar. Personalization is key in any transaction, sales transaction. If it's B2C or B2B, it's very much the same. And we also see a growing number of channels and touch points also in B2B sales journeys. So you have actually the exact same expectations. You have very, very similar developments, if you will. And just as a last quote, because I just also read it recently, however you want to look at it, 60 to 70% of a B2B sales journey today is happening without actually talking to any sales representative, right? There are people or age cohorts that actually would prefer 2 out of 3 times to not interact with any sales representative at all in a sales transaction. Now, this is very consumerized if you think of it. And so, long answer, I don't think there is a big difference.
Yeah, I believe that. Yeah.
It's fascinating. It is, because we had this discussion several times, and I like your answer, such as the perspective, going through that and that. And I yesterday had an interesting talk with people in the area of a special community, sportsperson, athletes, which are allowed to utilize special programs to buy cars. And this is a car portal which is developing and delivering a lot of benefits to this dedicated community. And the dedicated community is not only sports persons, but they have this for 3-4 others where they deliver special benefits. And in this special case, such as to know they are typically users of when they are in the family mode, when they are in the sports mode as sports persons, and when they have to carry their gear with them, and that they are the typical we are on vacation and we are on the move mode. Yeah. So I observe, and this is the interesting part of data-driven real-time. When the game and the market is changing, then your orchestration has to adapt like that. And that is what makes me tick. And how is ZAS doing this? Because we have spoken about Medallia, we have spoken about Thunder, Qualtrics, and you named that Forrester research. And yes, I saw your name also there. Not Michael's, but ZAS. Yeah. So,
yeah. So SAS has a portfolio of, or has a platform that actually enables these different kind of capabilities. So obviously, when you look at data-driven marketing or customer journey orchestration, you always need to be somewhere at the very front in terms of like collecting data from different data sources, right? So you have to ingest information that you own, like you have zero-party data that is basically transactional ERP information. You have first-party data that's everything around, okay, how are customers interacting with your different touch points, how they interact with you on a mobile site or on a web page or something along those lines, and then different other data points. Then you basically put them into what you would call in industry-wide a CDP, a customer data platform. It's basically unifying your customer profile in real time. And again, that's the key word. We have CRM systems, we have ERP systems. The data in there, most of the time, is not real time. It's just there's a lag in information because they have to tap the different sources. CDPs in their nature should be real time in the way how they ingest information and build up that profile. Because whenever there's a change in a profile or the artificial intelligence models that are feeding as well into the CDP and create trigger events, whatever those might be, like again, being on the website and looking for Asia, you have to have the capability to take that information and make decisions. And that's just another component that we have. So we're collecting the data, we're creating the golden record, we're using artificial intelligence models to actually offer arbitration, calculate affinities, whatnot, and then make real-time in milliseconds decisions on what is the next best experience for that particular customer.
Okay.
Do we give them an offer? Do we give them an action they should follow? Is it maybe just some inspirational information that we deliver to the customer, right? We also understand based on analytics, what is the best possible path we should put them on in terms of in potential journey, right? And then the last step is we also have the possibility to not just, do the quote unquote number or data crunching, but we can also actually do the activation part as well. So then, personalizing the website in real time, creating a banner or a pop-up or actually having an offer that the person can close right on the website or sending out a marketing campaign for different channels, yada, yada, yada. So it's a real end-to-end platform because again, today, once the customer has been activated, it all feeds back into the loop because the customer reacts, doesn't react, whatever, denies or just doesn't accept the offer, just missing the word in English. That feeds back into the whole system, saying like,
okay,
yes,
yeah.
It's a closed loop, right?
Yeah,
it's like a donut, if you will.
And the human in the loop is so important, and sometimes, unfortunately, partly forgotten. Yeah.
Right.
Yep.
Right.
I think we wouldn't be doing our jobs if I didn't at least bring up the idea of data privacy.
Sure. There was something.
Lovely.
Yeah, let's play with that for a couple of minutes. Obviously, the various laws and regulations have changed how businesses have to manage the data that they hold. But has it changed the way analytics is or are done? Has there been a practical change, or is it just a matter of it making it easier for consumers to pull their information out when they don't want it there anymore?
Right. I mean, I think what has changed is, and this is where the industry in itself is struggling, is with all these regulations in place, it's much harder to get consent to actually, get this full picture of customers, because giving consent has been decreasing over the years. So that's an issue. The countermeasure is, let me pull back. The reason that many people don't give consent anymore is because they don't see the value, right? So giving consent, being willing to share personal data, comes with a price that organizations who would like to have the data are not always willing to pay. The price is transparency in terms of like, hey, what are we doing with your data actually, right? So, we want to market to you, obviously, but what kind of value are we creating? And if organizations would be more aggressive in a positive way about what they're going to do with the data and how actually somebody benefits from sharing it, that would possibly drive up consent much more. I think this is something that organizations have to work on to improve it. The other thing, and I'm losing my train of thought. The other thing is, once you have the data, is applying what we call responsible AI, because not everything you can do with analytics is everything you should do, right? So being responsible, careful with something that somebody trusts you, and making models that actually are helping the customer to have a better experience, and not just, I used the word just a couple minutes ago, exploit those insights in a way. Right? That's one thing. And the other thing is, and this goes particularly in underrepresented minorities, there's a strong again, I'm missing the English word. There is a strong movement specifically in financial services, where you have these underbanked, underrepresented minorities that, based on skewed and biased AI models, get worse financial ratings, right? Yeah. And the AIs just get enforced in learning that they shouldn't give, for example, mortgages to these kind of
and credits.
Right. So this is also a big piece that organizations have to look at to remove that bias out of their models. This is something that has a lot to do also with transparency in the way how models work, because AI has always like this kind of black box kind of stamp on it. And there are regulations in Europe in particular that work against this. So AI needs to be explainable. AI needs to be transparent, so that you understand why did the machine make the decision it made. And this is something that we also help organizations with, because that's something that comes with our DNA, that we want to have this transparency and that fairness in the way how we do business. But that's something you have to also consider. So AI is great, but there are a lot of things that you need to make sure you cover your bases on, so you are actually providing value and you're doing it in a fair and ethical way.
I like the way, sorry, Marshall, of artificial intelligence advisory, such as the system is giving you guidance, it makes you suggestions, but it's not utilizing, as I was unpolitely mentioning, the human brain. If there is nothing, it is serviced by the little bit of artificial intelligence, which is mostly programmed by men, not by females. So the thinking in all software which is programmed by men, by male persons, put it clearly to that aspect, does have more faults, does have more in one direction approach thinking. And you mentioned one of the most important things, that you get the bad ratings if you live in the wrong area of the city, for instance, and you can't control it. Such as if I live in a skyscraper and the area has a bad rating, why the heck do I, with my bombastic salary, get a bad rating for my next credit, my mortgage? Yeah, because I want to build my own house. Yeah, that is a very fascinating point. As we are closing to the hour, or we just have met the hour, I would like to go for one thing which is a bit of our private hobby. The three of us, which are normally here present, we are analyzing how the employee experience is motivating to deliver a very cool and extraordinary positive customer experience. If you have worked for the MedTech company, for Update, which became then Aurea, Medallia, and now with Das, what is your experience from your own perspective and what you see by your colleagues, female, and male?
Right. So I'd say this, in all these organizations I have worked in the past, what you could see, and this is obviously less academic than just being my personal observations, that when you have a culture in place that is respectful and where the company takes care of their employees and they feel it, then in turn, they will take care of customers. That's something I have just observed over the time in different organizations. And that works pretty well for everyone at the end of the day. There is this, I think this Sir Richard Branson's famous quote that says, treat your employees as you would like them to treat your customers. And I think that kind of like pretty much nails why CX and EX are so closely linked to each other. Now, my fellow ex-colleagues from Medallia did a ton of research on, how these different experience approaches interact with each other. And obviously there is a strong indicator that companies who have an above average employee experience in organizations have a much higher likelihood of having financial success. So it really depends on how you look at it. But when you look at financial success in terms of like having a growth of, let's say, 20 to 30% year over year, EX champions, if you will have like at least a 10x higher probability of overachieving that growth. Now, again, EX and CX can be put into a very esoterical corner. So like, happy employees, blah, 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 blah. The truth is, when you look at the numbers, they will tell you that taking care of your employees and making sure they feel safe, they feel seen, they feel respected, this will reflect on the way how they treat your customers, and then obviously also reflect into your profitability as an organization. So absolutely something you should be doing.
Good advice.
Thank you for that. I would say this is perfect for our closing statement. And we appreciate very much everybody who has been with us and is staying with us. And you make the right choice. Before Dreamforce is the CRMKonvo, and you have been in the right team chamber. And we hope you enjoy the rest of your day, the rest of your evening, and pay tribute to the messages which are coming from one or the other genie out of the bottle, which is going to the sky. And remember the fantastic series Beautiful Genie, as it was translated in German, Dr. Bellows, Major Healy, and now I forget J.R. Ewing in his role. Major Nelson. Thank you very much. So it's good to have a certain age and know his TV series.
Yeah,
this is valuable information here.
I grew up with this stuff, so
I'm very grateful that you have been with us, Michael, and thanks heaps for being with us. Stay safe, take care, and keep off Corona, and we meet next Tuesday again. Now we go backstage, and